Welcome to Office Hours and Update Discussions for Members, a dedicated session where we dive deep into the latest AI advancements and how they impact our community. Today, we've gathered to not only explore these updates, but to engage in a dynamic exchange of ideas, questions, and live demonstrations. Our agenda is packed with insightful segments, beginning with a comprehensive walkthrough of recent AI updates. This segment is designed to bring you up to speed on the latest developments, ensuring you have the knowledge needed to leverage these advancements in your own projects. Following the walkthrough, we'll open the floor for a Q&A session about these updates. This is your opportunity to ask questions, seek clarification, and discuss how these changes can be applied to your work. We encourage you to bring your queries and contribute to the conversation. The highlight of our session will be a live FAFO with member use cases.
Hello, people raising hands. Good to see so many of our trainers on the call, and of course, all of our organization members and everyone else, and a couple of new people. Yay. We're going to give it a minute, and we'll get started. And I'm hoping to start doing these almost every other week, especially as you get major updates. And one of the things that happens is that I send out the AI update, a lot of questions start coming me. Hey, can you explain this further? How does this apply to my industry? We have stuff. So what I'm going to request all of you is please ask me questions in the chat. Please ask me questions in the Q&A. And if you have time, the last 10 minutes, we'd love to do some FAFO on use cases or stuff you've had trouble with. I'm going to show you an updated version of the CB thing because a number of you wanted me to sort of walk through everybody on that on the webinar. But otherwise, feel free. But if you're going to FAFO, please data and context at least. And you can anonymize it because obviously this is a bit public. So happy to try to FAFO. If you're having problems with something, the office hours is where we can sort of try and look at it together. And that's for the benefit of everyone, because I find that almost 70–80% of the problems that we're all facing tend to be common. So to repeat, for those who are joining us, please put Q&A. Please put questions in the chat. I'll go through the update step by step, and then we'll try to get a bit of FAFO done. And I'll do one with the CB one because that's, again, something that people want. Okay, let's dive in, everyone. So warm welcome. And of course, all of you know this, but the Vajal Institute, Vajal means the path, so our path to AI. And of course, our goal is 1 million people trained on AI in person. And that's something which our trainers are trying to do. I'm trying to do as well all across the world. Please become a trainer. We are super excited to have you as a trainer as well. Excellent. So I'm going to go through the state of updates, but which I'd sent out. But obviously, unfortunately, this is now old because new stuff happened in the past couple of days. So I'm going to cover some of it. But interestingly, we can see the trend lines. And so today I want to also show you, starting from Jan, Feb, and March, there's certain trends which you're seeing doubling down. And I think those are very, very interesting to start sort of doing. So one big thing is, of course, chips. So let me go step by step, and I'll share the updates. And all of you, of course, have access to this. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to put it in the chat for all of you. And you can read through, and that's on our website. Of course, our AI Real Estate New York program is out, as well as the Train the Trainers for those who'd like to join. And wonderful pictures from our Bangkok and Toronto Train the Trainer events. Okay, so what's interesting now, and this is something which I want you to think of in terms of just look at the chips, right? So we have NVIDIA's announcement 2 days ago, well, depending on which time zone you are. But we also have this notion that AI, particularly the transformer models, Gen AI, which we're all now familiar and using, are kind of only like a year and a half old in the spotlight, which means the chips haven't really been optimized for it. So for those of you who remember when the entire Bitcoin Bitcoin mining and crypto started, we first started looking at GPUs as the standard. And no one could get a gaming PC because everyone was crypto mining. But then eventually they moved to highly specialized chips, ASICs. You had companies like Antminer and Bitminer who started coming out with specialized servers for that. Here's one called Grok, and this isn't Elon's Grok, it's another Grok. And the founder is somebody who had worked on Google's custom AI chip, the TensorFlow TPU. Um, they have come out with an inference only chip. And you can see the absolute difference when you have the same throughput and latency and tokens per second as it moves forward. They are claiming in many cases 10x speed for the same cost, same power, same performance. And this is because the entire chip is designed only for inference. Inference essentially means running the AI model. So one thing is very interesting is that we're just starting to see first line of chips which only do inference. Now, Grok clearly says that the chips can't be used to train AI models because they are so specific to inference. And if we buy the reasoning that inference is an expression of the transformer model, it's going to be everywhere, right? You look at the large language models, image generation, videos, vision models, all of that, having inference-based chips all across the world with latency is one of the big things. So one big update is to really look at chips. And if you look at NVIDIA's launch, and I'll share with you the nice picture of Jason Huang on the screen. And you can see the massive bump they've done, right? All the way, all that absolutely insane bump. And the 2, 3 things which I want you to notice on this. One, this all self-contained on a single blade, right? So the density of data centers goes up, and it goes up so much that NVIDIA is now providing its own liquid cooling systems inside the racks they will send you. And if you're doing the liquid cooling systems in terms of the rack, you have a completely self-contained training rack that they are going to now mail to you. NVIDIA's own numbers say, well, they're claiming 3,200 times better than air cooling. And the only way to get this density is by doing liquid cooling. And the reason why, and for those of you who either invested in or remember traditional data centers which got converted to the Bitcoin mining and all, the difference between an AI data center and chips is that a Bitcoin chip or even regular compute doesn't need the speed of connectivity between all the parts to be that high. But since AI models are running large models across a large number of neural network nodes, the interconnections between these need to be high speed. So the best way to do that is to put things closer together. So densities increase, heat increases, and therefore cooling is required. Obviously, there's huge energy cost to this. And so data centers often spend more money on the cooling part than any other part of the data center. And we are seeing all sorts of ingenious ways to cool it. If you remember last year, Microsoft was dunking containers full of servers into oceans to try to get the heat out. NVIDIA, of course, has moved to liquid cooling. And we see now specialized cooling companies coming out just to deal with this. But I want to push back on the notion of this massive need for 10x, 20x data centers, because the story of AI in the last 1 year and the 1 year going ahead is one of optimization. So let's have a look at a couple of more interesting updates that sort of called it. And I'm going to switch back and forth some of my updates to show you some graphs on this. And let me share back on my update screen. There we go. So I haven't tried this yet. And, I don't like to recommend anything or push for anything until at least I've tried it or someone I know who's credible has tried it. But Answer AI is claiming that they have a fully open source system which can efficiently train a 70 billion large model, which is the standard 3.5 competitor model by most open source and closed source on a standard desktop computer with 2 gaming GPUs. And so I was watching Jason Huang you need 2,000 Blackwells to train a ChatGPT-4 model in 90 days. Each Blackwell costs approximately 35 to 40,000, best estimate. Obviously, there's additional costs on racks and systems and power consumptions. But to have the infrastructure to train a ChatGPT-4 model every time in 90 days, it's going to be something like 80 to $90 million, right? And if you're running that again and again, and then you have this company Answer AI, which says, hey, wait a minute, we can use it on two old school NVIDIA RTX. So watch this space. It's going to be interesting to see whether these claims are real and if can they be reflected. And my apologies for the screen share. So sorry, Answer AI. And this is the, you can see 1,000 $479 for one of these RTXs. So two of those compared to the Blackwell at 40, which you need 2,000 of. So, it does seem a bit off, but I think we'll find out in the next 2 to 3 weeks if people actually start using the new open source system to try to train these models. The other thing, however, though, is, what if happens if every consumer really starts running large language models on their own phones locally? And that's where Apple is going. That's where Google, Samsung, Xiaomi, and all is going. And if you remember the update from earlier on this year, you had Microsoft come out with Orca 2, which was a 7 billion model, right? Which is successfully competing very well on a large number of options with even the large Llama 2 models, which is sort of the open source standard at the time, right? And so you can see the Orca system very well competing here on a large number of tasks, in some states exceeding. And so one of the things we learned in the last year, if you remember 6 months ago, it was all about how big the model can get, right? It's going to be trillions of parameters, if not, right now the 700 billion plus, 70 billion plus, but it's quality over quantity. And so people are going back to the lab and saying, okay, we need to look at high quality data sets. And high quality data sets is what gives us better models, lower cost, smaller models. Now, if you have smaller models, more optimized models, you're going to require lesser chips. And again, the holy grail for most companies is to be able to fit these and run them locally on a phone or on a computer, particularly Apple, who is pushing for a fully private LLM model. There are rumors of them reaching out to Google and doing something with their Gemini system, despite, of course, all the issues Google has had, and this notion you'll have this Apple Google Connect, and they've, don't forget, they've always had a great agreement on search, right? Google search is always default on Apple, and Apple pays them a lot of money. Google pays Apple a lot of money for that, and versus a Microsoft ecosystem. But one notion may be that they might have limited capabilities of a local LLM running on the new Apple phone, and then additional inference, which is way beyond what the phone can do, might be offshooted to Google. Apple has bought one or two companies which are specialized in making models. So that is something that they really want to push. And the M3, M4 chips will absolutely be able to support that. So it's interesting to see how these companies are going to go through this entire journey of bringing the cost of this down, but also, quite frankly, getting it onto the chips that you and I need. Backlash has started. This is Hayao Miyazaki. Many of you know him. Very, very famous. Considered the god of anime, who really brought anime out of Japan to the entire world. Studio Ghibli, famous anime like Princess Mononoke and all that came out. And there's a video of him, of course, being introduced in his own studio to these young people, showing them their capabilities of using their language models and using their imaging models. And this is what he had to say for it. This is translated from Japanese. I'm utterly disgusted. If you really want to make creepy stuff, you can go ahead and do it. I would never want to incorporate this technology into my work at all. I strongly feel this is an insult to life itself. And they went back and forth, and then effectively they said that, look, this is happening. And he sort of has this moment where he kind of breaks down and he says, look, I feel we're nearing the end of times. And we're also seeing other creators and artists sort of have this backlash. This is Jina Zhang. Words can't describe how dehumanizing it is to see my name used 20,000 plus times in Midjourney. My life's work and who I am reduced to meaningless fodder for a commercial image slot machine. We're going to see a lot of this come out in terms of regulation, philosophy, and ethics. This is going to be by geography, and it's going to be very personal. Different artists, different consumers are going to take a stance, and some of them are going to take a very, very strong stance on what they feel is acceptable and unacceptable in terms of creators, in terms of AI imagery, and in terms of unlocking new creators. One sense is that the only difference perhaps between a great artist and someone who a great visionary is the artist's ability and skill to paint. But on the other hand, wholesale copying someone's style and art, although very much done in art school, may not perhaps be the best. And honestly, the copyright stuff and all is there. If you've seen our copyright module, we're still waiting for the Supreme Court in the US and a couple of other jurisdictions to weigh on it. Expected probably mid of this year or end of this year. Most of this should be started. We've been testing it's Copilot extensively, and a whole bunch of our trainers and us, we are going around the world trying to train people on Copilot as well. It's still lagging a lot between ChatGPT 4. And I think part of the problem is that Microsoft seems to be using a mix of models. The last 2 weeks, I've had, a couple of FAFOs with, large corporations, publicly listed, some of them Fortune 500, and um, it's almost jarring how different each one of their Copilot looks like, both depending on the subscription they have, and of course, depending on which geographies it is. That said, most of them are able to use ChatGPT for Turbo now in Copilot, which is fantastic. And the notebook mode in Copilot is also fantastic. So Copilot is catching up. Yet in terms of Outlook, Word, and all that, I think it's a 2 to 3 months, but we can see where that angle is going. But I think clearly Microsoft is taking a stance here that they're not married to ChatGPT 4 alone or OpenAI alone. And so I think they are testing models at the back. We are seeing different products use different AI models, which are not OpenAI models, because as you test the prompts, you see very different answers. And I think this is going to be a 3-month game before it sort of settles down on their strategy. So look at this space. I think it's very powerful, particularly for those who are all in Microsoft shops. That said, I do worry about companies betting everything on a single model or on a single outlook. And the Microsoft bet for a lot of people, it's enterprise, data, and security, but also the models themselves, perhaps Microsoft will provide alternatives. But fingers crossed on that for those who are going all in. And yes, Microsoft took out its new Copilot GPT, which is pretty much 1:1 copy of the Chat GPT-4 bot. Even the settings, everything is pretty much the same. Claude 3 came out, and Claude 3 Opus. And if you look at the LMSys leaderboards, which you should always have a look at once in a while, and this is the chess style ELO blind testing. Claude 3 is pretty much hit number 3 now. So it's beating Gemini. It's right behind the two ChatGPT turbos and beating the old ChatGPT 4. And these are human evals done blind tasting, so to speak. People ask prompts and they choose which chat they want. But we at Vijal have been, as usual, you give us a model and we FO the hell out of it, and we got stuck. And so this, if you remember, is a classic prompt from our from our CEO course, where we look at organizational design. And we said, hey, we're trying to come up with a new organization design. Here is a brainstorming board. First, please write a detailed description of this org chart. Then for each position, write a power on the role. and then figure out what other people we need, right? Simple: CEO, account head, R&D head, HR head, junior, accounts one, and it refused. Did not feel comfortable providing the detailed analysis you requested. The roles and title promote inappropriate and unethical workplace hierarchy, enable abusive power dynamics and harassment. The goal should be empowering teams. This is crude characterizations. And I'm happy to have a conversation. When told, this is standard, I mean, literally most of your companies have this as well. I cannot still provide the analysis, regardless of how common it may be. Promoting hierarchy and crude, demeaning characteristics, unethical and inappropriate. I would strongly advise redesigns org chart to be professional, respectful job titles and such. And it's a little bit surprising. Claude is actually really good at legal documents, long legal documents, and that's something which I've been really enjoying using it for. But stuff like this scares me. If you have one model or two models which are fully sort of baked into what you're doing, and then suddenly they say, I can't do this because what you're doing is unethical, when pretty much it's industry standard. It's not ready for enterprise in many ways. And we saw what happened with the conflicts with Germany, comparing Elon and Hitler and saying pretty much they're equal, or the inability to make white people appear in images, and ended up having Asian Nazis and Black Nazis and every type of Nazis except white Nazis, which was a big blow. And Sundar Pichai ended up sending a letter saying it's unacceptable. But two losses, Bard and Gemini, a little bit of a black face for Google on this. Yeah, no pun intended, sorry. Big thing. When we're looking at then testing models, I'm now advising people, please have two models running side by side, which is one model, which is your primary mainstream model, and maybe another model where you're testing and keeping your backup. And there's going to be a drift between those two, right? And I'm going to probably send out a video on model drift, because that's really important to see how far it goes from your prompting over time, but also how your prompts drift from a standard LLM over time. Most of the prompts that you see in the Vijal directory, we usually try to test them across at least two or three equivalent LLMs. So if it's a GPT-4 prompt, it will work on a Gemini, it will work on a Claude. But as you start customizing these large prompts, this is fairly large, and you will customize it with your context and data and really start going into output, you're going to start seeing very optimized prompts internally that may or may not work outside the model you tried them on. And so I think having a secondary model running and a strategy of that is very important. And that's why I'm recommending, apart from a primary model that you might be running at the back end, or a primary thing like Copilot, have another one in the works that you can pull out in case a major decision happens, that your use case suddenly, I know, goes into this type of mode where it just refuses to do your work. Stability AI, which is the other imaging model. And I think there's a new image to 3D model, Stability dropped. This huge push, again, image to 3D, image to CAD, image to 3D printing. I expect in 2 to 3 weeks, a lot of this to come out. And I'll update you with specific examples. They are early ones and not that good, but I think Stability really has come out with something that can infer a full 3D system. Massive, massive goal for gaming, for example, where you really see that that things are really pushing towards that. And I think this is something that really, really works well. Remember, text consistency has always been a huge problem. And you have Ideogram, one of the other imaging models out there, which is now differentiating themselves by saying we can do text really well, and it does. And he says, prompt, and a classic anime girl holding up a sign that says "I love Vijay," and this is fully AI generated and fairly consistent 90% of the time. We're also seeing DALL-E and Midjourney start to work on text. This should be out again in 30 days, according to them, one way or the other, where you will see marginal improvements. Right now, remember, please put it in quotes, all caps, and that's really important. Uh, Midjourney upgraded the reverse prompting. Please try this. You can upload an image now, do a slash describe, and it'll come in with a lot more data and a better prompt than what it used to do. And the consistency also improves by a lot. And we're working on a large mid-journey prompt directory, because one of the big feedbacks I've gotten is that, hey, Addy, if you're not a designer, if you're not a photographer, it's kind of hard to figure out how to do these. But I think this is wonderful, because now you can pick a photo you like or a concept you like, reverse prompt it, and at least get a great place to start. At least you understand the technicalities. And if you remember seeing the prompting update webinar, there were like 30 different options that you could choose from to properly describe just in Midjourney alone. And so having a little bit of help and support from them is really good. One of the big updates got access to the Gemini Pro model, which is 1 million tokens context. And for those of you who've done the classic Etsy example, which we use, for the first time ran the full PDF in, copy paste. It is absolutely delightful. I have to admit, a complete game changer in terms of massive context. Unfortunately, the output is still pretty much 400-500 words. Pushing it, hey, write a full book, a 1,000,000-word book, isn't working. It's still very much in the, hey, let's I'll take 1,000,000 words and I'll summarize it into 1,000. Pushing it back and forth does allow you to get more. I was surprised at the speed. 200,000 words running at about a minute back and forth, which is really good. But the quality of analysis, because of getting so much more context in, is really important. And if you remember, one of the issues we faced, I'm going to go down to, I think we had it in the GDP. One of the issues we faced consistently in RAG, a lot of people using the vectors. Everybody's using vectors. As you know, I'm not very happy with the vector RAG system because of how poor they are beyond a few pages of text. Here's all the stuff people are trying to do to improve RAG using vectors when you could just use enterprise search. This gets you out of this. You don't need the vector RAG. Oh, nice picture from Dubai Train the Trainers. And if you see the push out that happened from the new vector embedding models from OpenAI on the standard MMLA test, these guys are still running at MTEB evaluation at 64% accuracy. So you can't trust RAG beyond text, beyond maybe 40, 50 documents inside your bot, or if you're using a standard external RAG system. And it's unfortunate that 99% of the industry seems to be pushing this just because of the cost, right? 1,000,000 words, couple of cents, 7 lines of code in LangChain, and $10 to $20 of Pinecone or Firebase per month. But as you start moving towards applications which require extreme consistency, which require each time the answer is 100% right, you can't trust this. And I think a combination of moving back to better search engines, such as enterprise search, whether it's an Elasticsearch or an Apache Solar or Microsoft's Cognito, Amazon's Kendra, all of them in that fantastic search bracket, combined with an insanely large prompt. If you can put the entire data into the prompt and run it each time, it's of course a cost issue, but the quality goes up unbelievably, particularly for analytics, particularly for when you need a lot of thought process going through the entire context. Remember, vector RAG at the end of the day only pulls out certain bits of the document and puts into the prompt. It's still copy paste in what it thinks it's relevant, right? 64% of the time, versus putting everything that is relevant, and it is a joy to watch. Again, I'm not sure how much it's going to cost. Obviously, I think this is where Google has jumped ahead. On that note, there was an interview. Sam Altman has hinted at ChatGPT 5, and there's a Business Insider, and I got the quote from it, story running around. one CEO who recently saw a version of GPT-5. It's really good. Like materially better isn't something I would want to, describe as a game-changing upgrade. I think going from 3 to 4 was game-changing. So I'm hoping the CEO is being, more British than American, where it's like not bad at all. So it's materially better, but what I meant to say, it's absolutely amazing. So I'm really hoping for that. But it also means you're probably getting this out in the summer. Sam, in a recent interview with on the Lex podcast, hinted towards the end of the year. There's a lot of small iterations that they have to do. He didn't mention those. I'll mention it. Latency issues, speed of GPT-4, speed of the assistants, API consistency, um, giving a higher speed tier to people who are willing to pay for near instant, getting their Whisper and AI, which I demo all the time, to connect as an API, as a turnkey service. There is a lot of stuff that OpenAI needs to get done, just in terms of backlog of tech debt that they should be able to push out before GPT-5 really comes up. But I think this is an interesting notion of them developing their own AI agents for certain tasks and use cases that they think will perform autonomously. My biggest concern when I look at a lot of startups, and having gone through the entire world tour 85 cities and meeting a lot of them, is I worry that they're doing obvious things that will OpenAI will do next month, right? And we saw that when the GPT assistants came out, a whole bunch of startups were focusing on that, went out. The moment ChatGPT 4 got the little clippy icon to upload inbuilt RAG, whole bunch of startups went out. And so if you are working in this space, one of the strategic things would be we really need to find something that OpenAI won't be able to deliver, maybe a service, maybe a system, but then also be prepared that your core technology might just have to be replaced by something that they're coming out with in any case. And so this is, I'm going to flag it here for a lot of people who are worried. And one of the sense that I'm getting from a lot of people is that, if you can almost do it with GPT-4, the notion is you probably can do it with GPT-5. And so there's a case for almost working use cases where you're almost there, but you're not quite. And maybe, hold on to those use cases, hold on to those prompts, and maybe in 4 to 5 months, 6 months, you're going to see a massive shift when the new GPT-5 versions, or more likely, in my opinion, 4.5 will come out this summer. Wonderful. Last bit, they want to talk very briefly of something we saw earlier on. And this was the bias compass scores. And this continues to be there, as I just want to point out again. I think this was way back in Jan. This is before, Germany came out. And I think it was really clear at that time that this is going to be a little bit troublesome for tech. And of course, this is US politics. This may not apply in your country, but all of them economically left, all of them social libertarian by default. Remember from the course, make sure you provide your bias, your perspective. That's what's going to really win the day. But this is an issue. And I think more and more we are going to see competition in people trying to figure out, can we make data sets and bots there? Now, part of the problem of why this is there is that all of them use the same initial cake recipe to build this, right? So they were copying OpenAI and they said, okay, we have to build this cake, put it in the oven, and it's going to cost us 10 million, 20 million a run. So we're going to be very close to what OpenAI did. And I think that's why all of them ended up then being stuck in the same place, same system, same transformers, same data sets. But I think that's going to last about 6 months. I think enough public grief has been given to Gemini and to other bots that we're going to see a lot of differentiation in this. And so I think this is going to be something that we're going to have to confront. My advice has been to all companies is that let the user decide the bias, right? If you want, just have a knob. You want to go left, move the data set left. You want to move right, move the data set right. You give them the option. Don't be the company that is judging whether your bot is left wing or right wing or up or down. And case in point, OpenAI already gives you push this in the moderation bot, right? So this is OpenAI's moderation API, which goes in front of the model, because many models will tell you anything. You've seen the demo in class, some of you, where you ask Mistral on how to assassinate people, and it beautifully explains how to do it and how to create firebombs. This is what sits in front of the model to stop it from doing that. And I think a lot more companies need to start keeping the model alone without trying to get it to be any left wing, right wing, up wing, down wing, and move the biases and the issues and all to the moderation filters, and then allow the users and companies to choose their moderation filters on that. So I'm going to pause there, take questions. What would you guys like to talk about? I'm already seeing a couple of Office Art stuff. And I'm just going to start off with a few questions. Pedro asking, a friend of ours has a product that he can use to place phone calls to his prospect to get basic information from the US. Out of the box product sound like a cool use case to build out. Do you know products out of the box? If you want to build this product, you have freelance and shops to developer, API, heavy thing. Pedro, great question. So I'm going to show you a unfortunate chart on the current problem with this, right? And right, so there are companies doing this. There's Air, there's 3, 4 other ones who are claiming. I've seen some proprietary companies which are starting to now offer this, but nothing that I can recommend right now. But I would certainly not use Zapier and such. I have seen 2 examples where it's been done with N8N, but here's the problem you're going to run into, right? So this is actually from a call center model. And if you see this, and this is N8N, and this is where the call comes in, it goes to the customer service rep, AI customer service rep, which sends to the accounting guy, which sends to the QuickBooks system, which sends to the OpenAI, and then sends to the Twilio system, and this rotates. The problem from here to here, it's about 1.5 minutes. That's unacceptable in the call. And how do people cover that up? They have canned responses. Oh, let me look that up for you. Typing sound, typing sound, typing sound. And that's the limit that we're seeing here. Robocalling in terms of taking surveys and calling, etc., can be done. But complicated cases, I know there are many ways to do this. You can segregate this and have 3, 4 bots that run this. And this is what people are really rushing towards. And the ChatGPT 4, the assistance and the back and forth in terms of the API is just not fast enough to do this. Now, that said, if you've seen my demo of using ChatGPT 4 on the phone and doing a phone call as a telecom center there, it actually works really well. And so this is a latency issue, Pedro. So if you were to do this on your own, I would think it would require a significant amount of investment in getting the data, the model, the telephony in a low latency box. I do think OpenAI is going to pretty much come out with this in 3 months. They already have it in their app on the phone. They just need to provide an API and connected telephone programs. So again, I don't think this is, in my opinion, a product that is going to be truly differential. So I would just wait. My standard thing, FAFO, wait 2 weeks. Let's look at this one, etc. Do universities have any chance of competing in AI research at this time? Absolutely. So, again, one of the big things that if you think about this, right, what is being researched? Who is doing the research and what are they focusing on? Transformers are new. There's barely been, if you look maybe 2 years ago, there might be 1,000 people really looking into this, right? And, there was a new paper that came out, I think last week in Nature using radio waves and photonics for AI chips, right? So they're claiming 1,000, end of silicon, we're going to do photonic chips using photonic wafers on like lithium nanodes systems, which by the way is an old tech and it has proven to work and probably it's going to be the one that's going to happen in the next 3 years, way before we get quantum computing into place. But the issue fundamentally is it's all new. So I think there's just so much still to research around this. There's so much to try. There's so much FA effort to be done that, I think there's going to be years and years. And don't forget, it's the platforms are there, but you're also looking at its applications. You're looking at how this stuff goes through. You're looking industry-wise. You're looking at applications in very, very basic research coming out. And you're going to need funding, time, and effort. And right now, because AI sort of came out of the box early, I think all of this stuff is going into real life practical applications. The hardcore, let's use this tech and go back to basic research. Few companies are doing it. And you're seeing that in drug discovery and healthcare. But I think universities have a massive toolkit which they can now use to up their old school research, which maybe perhaps wasn't as productive or quite frankly wasn't working with the old ML models. So I'm actually very bullish on a lot of research being done all across the board by universities. Other questions? Yeah, so Bruno, what is the cause between ChatGPT laziness? So there's a lot of thoughts. So one is model drift. And model drift basically is you put out a model, it starts running on a bunch of inference chips. And over time, it starts to behave differently in the wild. And so it's called drift. And you can look it up. There's a lot of reasons why. The other one, laziness, it's mirroring humans. Last month, OpenAI came out with this notion that it's surprisingly more human than they thought it would. So using things like, hey, please do this, or think about it again, or take a break is there. And so, one thing is that, maybe times of day or years. So people say, hey, it's, March, it's not May, it's not summer. So, don't be lazy. But the other part about laziness is that honestly, a lot of models are purposely lazy. And they're lazy because tokens cost money. And so if they're charging you 10, 15, $20 a month for unlimited access and you're not paying per token, that laziness tends to come in. The other laziness which we see is like it's not comprehensive, it's not giving us long answers, it's kind of like doing step by step. It's also how the end of what is the end of the conversation supposed to look like, right? And that's something that large language models have historically struggled with to say, okay, when do I stop? Or I could keep going, what's next, what next, what next? And so combination of those two leads to that drift. Other questions, new features such as action. Bruno, I'll cover that in another thing. I'll send up the bot, but basically what you can do with actions, and let me make sure I share my screen properly this time, is, and I'll show you the background of one of the test bots we have at Vajal, if I can find it, Vajal Bot of Love. This is for our trainers to, talk about it, and I know some of you have done it. And principally, so this is for our trainers to say all the trainings they look at, and this is very much an FAFO in motion. And your name is Olap, and the actions connect to an API which takes the name of the company, the name of the trainer, and the website. And so as you work with the bot, you can say, hey, I trained this company this time, and it'll call the action. And let me run this through and show you since you are live on it. I love to update on a training. And it's a little bit of a quirky bot which we've made. What's the secret code? Hazelnut, right? So hazelnut. Now, this is something which I'm really upset about because no matter what we FAFO here, it always gives hints. So the prompt has to be a lot of more negative prompting here. Oh, nope. Try the spelling again. Hazelnut. Aha, spoken the magic word. Fantastic. Okay, what you've trained, what you've done, and I'm going to say I trained the Vajal Institute, Vajal.ai, and my name is Burlia. And what it's going to do is it's going to connect to the API and send it to them. And this goes into our database, and it's signed and perfect. So actions are really nice. because you can do this. A lot of thoughts on this. Now, the only issue which I will say is that they are very much only inside ChatGPT bots. You can't get them from the API. And I think that's a big feature people are waiting for. There is an alternative called function calls, which are older, but honestly, not as nice as the actions. Also, the problem is triggering the actions, doing the security and all is still a bit, but the actions are the same thing companies used for plugins. So if you remember, you could search Kayak or you could search all of that. All of that happens through actions. So they are use cases, but they're still very much in the ChatGPT ecosystem. They're not outside of it. And so if your company is signed up for the Teams plan, for example, and everybody has ChatGPTs, you can take out these custom GPTs which use actions. Bruno, hopefully that answers things. I wish it were happier, but I'm convinced they'll probably get the actions out, in the next big update. Shubha Kumar, I'm looking to do a mid-journey prompt to create a building elevation for an office. Shubha, could you write it out exactly how you would say that to an L2? If you were to tell it to do a person who was drawing, could you just write it out, and I'll try and run it live, and we'll see that. And so I think it's a nice one for real estate on elevations. Not sure it might do it, but I think if you describe it correctly, let's try it. So I'll wait on you to type it out in the chat or in the Q&A. Give me 5 lines of how you would communicate this to an L2 draftsperson or to an L2 painter. Let me go through some other chats which have come in. Where do we become a member? Okay, this is for members. I guess some people non-members. I want to give you the quick link for signing up for memberships. And this one still has the old organization membership if you'd like, because you're moving away from that. And that's going to come into effect in about 5 days' time. So last chance to sign up for the organization membership at that insane, wonderful, cheap price. While I'm waiting for Shubha and a couple of other people to send me their data, I'm going to walk you through, since multiple people asked this, to do this. Alan, on Sora and all. Okay, so let me cover Sora and on memory. So memory, a bit of a joke. Honestly, I saw what they did with memory. I think it's just a custom instruction put in. I think it's more of a very consumery thing. I wouldn't bother. And memory is principally RAG, and part of which is just keeping stuff and knowledge. So I wouldn't really bet or honestly want to deal with memory. I don't think it's a use case that is going to be very fluid. People are going to forget what they said. They're going to try different things. And so running all of that into a context is either going to go into a vector RAG, which, as you know, low probability, so just confuse your data set, or you'll forget that it's there, and then you'll be upset that why on earth it's doing this when I asked this, but it's doing this. So I would just give up on memory for now. I do think custom fine-tuning is more likely. Sora is not going to be out until the end of the year. I didn't want to say this, but sure, if you want to look it up, there is an interview with OpenAI CTO on Sora, and it's a little bit difficult interview. They asked her that, hey, where is Sora's data from? Not a good response, a little bit defensive. And then she basically shut down that line of questioning. So I think they're going to go back to their drawing board to get that comms right. I think they're still red teaming it. I think they need to check box on a lot of things. I think they're going to drip it for another 4 to 5 months. I don't see Sora coming out until the summer or after the summer, especially after the debacle that happened with Germany's image bot, which they had to move back. And so since that happened, I think Sora is going to wait a while before coming out. Let me move back to, yeah, it was a terrible interview, unfortunately. But at least some sincerity, at least it wasn't a full PR job. Okay, I'm going to walk you through the classic thing. So this is how to create the favorite question which I get all the time. Hey, Addy, how do you do 1,000 CVs and put them through? So this is in Zapier, and I'm going to keep it high level. But you, of course, can do this in Power Automate, N8N, Amazon Text Functions. But I just want to walk you through the steps. So every time a new file is put in a Google folder or a drive, and you can have, for example, different folder names for different jobs and different job descriptions, convert it uh, from PDF, Word, and all. And I just use PDF.co. It's cheap, it's easy. Use your favorite one. There are a lot of them available. And of course, at scale, you might want to use something like Amazon Textract. And this is a Zapier thing. This returns a file. Take the file from Zapier, send it to ChatGPT. And in this case, this is a conversation there, and you pull in the job description and the evaluation criteria, runs a recommendation. You might want to send it again to maybe perhaps do a scoring. This is again a Zapier thing to reformat the way ChatGPT gives its output. This creates in a spreadsheet. This is the job. This is the recommendation. This is the evaluation criteria. This is the ranking, and you sort the spreadsheet on its own. And here you send an email to the recruiter from your inside email saying, hey, this has been applied. This is the recommendation. This is it. Or to your ATS system, so it's automatically grabbed. And you can even customize the response if you're happy with your prompts to the candidate saying, hey, we received it. This is our initial thoughts. I would put, hey, I'm an AI assistant somewhere just in case it screws up. And that's it. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to create certain things that you'd want to add to this. I would definitely put, for example, something that picks up the various job descriptions. So if you're using a form or an ATS, and you might have a database that you can say, okay, if it's this, if this CV arrives in this form or with this code, pick up the relevant job description and evaluations. So you can use the same for a much larger, you could do 10, 20, 30,000 in this. I would also maybe put one or two more chat GPTs here really to tease out what you're looking on. Again, small prompt, small data set, high use case in decision making. I would also, want to sort of increase the maybe instead of a single sheet, have two concurrent sheets going. One that would have all the candidates and, pull out from the CV the critical, their education, this, that, etc. So you have it in a record, so you don't have to redo that in your system. And then the second one with the eval, and because those are two different use cases, right? One is pulling out specific things from the CV, and one is evaluating the CV. And I just want to, point out you could have multiple operations on the same CV or the same document happening. And then, of course, yes, the email one-sided in and one-sided out. I think this is pretty powerful being able to send it back. But please, FAFO the prompt. You don't want to, and you might want to have a disclaimer that this is an auto-generated email. You might want to put in your prompt, do not promise the candidate anything. Make sure you tell it it's an AI assistant and maybe a yes or a no. But this is something that you get good enough things on that you can skip. Okay, Shima. Let's run yours in Dolly first, and then we'll do in Midjourney. And so let's load Dolly. This is a great prompt. Shima, did you try it already? And let's go to Discord, and we'll put it into to Midjourney as well. And lighting, style of building, this, that, etc. But we'll do it. Oh, and this is with a nice healthcare group I did. It's a designing outpatient clinics for them. Spa style. A photograph of a modern looking, professional and modern looking elevation for the building. Glass facade for the first two floor, open center, appropriate illumination. This might be a little complicated for Midjourney, but yeah, I think it got the thing right. Let's FAFO it a bit. Oh, hey, not too bad. Oh, wow. Shiva, I think you did it. Your prompt, few changes here and there. Brilliant. Shiva, which one do you like? Top left, right, bottom right, bottom left. Yeah, Shubha, if you can just put it in the chat, I will see it, or in the Q&A. Yeah, so I'm going to go with this one. I think this matches your brief a lot. So let's do variations on the first one, and maybe variations on the second one as well. Now, obviously, it really sucks at very nice. Let's get our second variations. You need to try this, Shobha. This is absolutely fantastic. This is amazing. Um, yeah, Matt, on Midjourney, on Signs, no, it's gotten slightly better, not as much as right, but you can use something like ideogram, which gets images absolutely right, and to go back. So Shobha, yay! Please use your prompt. It's good enough, and let me just give you the prompt I put into Midjourney, which is pretty much what you did with a slight edit. And I'm going to give that to you all in the chat so you can try that out yourself. There you go. But I think you did a great job. And Matt, so ideogram, I got this wonderful full thing there. Midjourney, not yet, but they're working on it. Midjourney has tried to launch character consistency. I didn't put it in my update, and I'm not, FAFOing with it because it's not there yet. And I think it really sort of needs a little bit more work. But you can see that's definitely a big thing on everybody's agenda. There's another one or two companies which have been claiming character consistency. I spent this morning FAFOing on those. Not happy. It's not happy yet, but it's a live space. A lot of time, energy, money is going in. It is absolutely a use case that is required. But Matt, I do think about maybe getting an image from Midjourney and moving it to a traditional editor like Photoshop or something where you can just change change the sign. Uh, Obviously not ideal, but if you can get like 99% correct and it's just a little text, 2-3 minutes on extra on Photoshop may not be a bad idea. But yes, I also really, really want to wait until we can get that done. Time for last one question. And then I know I promised everybody I would only keep this an hour, but we will try to do this more and more. Um, Renee, so yes, combining image. So Renee, one of the big things I used to do in Midjourney is to take this flooring and put it here. It's not that good. The best thing for you to do is to train a custom model. So if it's your own product, take the 360 pictures of it, and we're going to have a video once it's a little bit easier on how to do this, because it works for some products, it works for not. There are things that Magnific is coming out with, which is a recreation of scenes. There are things which are coming up with one or two others, not as easy as I'd like. I do want to look at, for example, models like AnyDoor, which I would check out for the plate. It's the e-commerce models that you can take, clothes and put on somebody. You can take a product and put it into a scene. It's really easy to do this in Midjourney for stuff like flooring, ceilings, objects. It tends to have an opinion, so it'll change it. But watch this space. E-com and getting your products in is really well. I don't know, quite frankly, if you would be selling only plates that you'd want to invest in a custom model for the plates, but things like cars, things like single perfume bottles, which you're launching a multi-million-dollar campaign. Those, if you get a nice 360-degree photograph of, you can train a custom model today, and I'll try to make a video on that once I'm a little bit happier on the ease of use. It's still kind of quirky right now, especially on the multi-epochs. Again, I won't go into the Einstein stuff. Let me stick there, but it's there. Um, Shubha, you'll have to learn Midjourney. This is it's in Discord. You can just go and get a Midjourney tutorial. Then lots of them, and I just put this exact prompt in. Just copy the prompt and try it out. Make sure it's Midjourney 6. You'll have to pay the 2 Starbucks coffees to make sure it's there. Last question on languages. Um, yes, African languages. It has. I think you're going to have to wait for, well, you're going to have to wait for a little bit more custom fine tuning to happen there. Regional languages in India, African custom languages are a big push. They've just not there been in the first run, obviously, because of commercial reasons. But there are a lot of people now saying that, hey, can we get a model that we'll fine tune on regional languages, and they see that as a big sell to enterprises, particularly as companies, start to roll out there. And they're saying, look, if you're going to do this call center fully, we need to have regional accents, regional language, regional lingo. I'll give you an example, a classic problem that you face, and I had a session with a large number of people from the Middle East, different countries. And what makeup is called in Saudi is very different from UAE, very different from Egypt. And so there's the Arabic standard, but the product names change. And so even if you have a bot that speaks really good Arabic, and they are, and goes back and forth in both voice and text, unfortunately, because the products change from country to country, it really struggles unless you do hyper localization. But that's a big push this year. And India, I know there's a lot of people working on this. I'm sure Africa is also going to happen. It's not that hard anymore. I think last year training models, 20, $30 million, people weren't willing to invest. Fine tuning and maybe 2 to 3 million. I think that's a sweet spot for getting some of this. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to end here. Great to see you. I hopefully will see you in 2 weeks after the next update. Please send me use cases. Would love to do more of this. And next time I'm going to try to figure out if we can get a way to get some of the FAFO cases before we start, because I do know some of you messaged me that, hey, you're not comfortable sending the data unless it's cleaned up a bit. So let me find a way you can upload the FAFO use case. We'll make it confidential, and then we'll run it live with everybody. Because I think that's a great way for people to learn. Thank you, and have a great day, afternoon, and evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you for participating in our webinar on office hours and update discussions for members. I hope you found the session informative and inspiring. At the VJAL Institute, we are committed to fostering a community of forward thinkers and innovators. Keep exploring, stay curious, and we look forward to welcoming you to our future events.